I am Nicole Albanes.
And I am Adrian Manuel Mar.
Welcome to the Global News, your comprehensive source of news around the globe.
Today is Tuesday, April 9, 2024, and we're ready to keep you informed about the most influential news of the hour.
For the headlines, attributes of a global city and how it serves as engines of globalization.
Theory of demographic transition and how it affects global population.
Factors underlying the global movement of people and the experiences of overseas Filipino workers.
Today's wave of mass urbanization is historically unprecedented in speed and scale. Today, over 1 million people are added to the global urban population every week. In the space of a few decades, we are in the process of doubling our urban capacity, adding an extra 2 to 3 billion more people to our urban environment. As a consequence, the world is currently going through its biggest build-out of technology infrastructure in history. Much of this urbanization will unfold in the emerging economies of Africa and Asia, bringing huge social and environmental transformations. Our future is set to be urban, as the world's population is increasingly concentrated in urban settlements. This creates new opportunities and new challenges in a fast-changing context. The way cities are shaped, their scale, scope of influence, form, and functionality is being transformed to support the rise of global networks. A myriad of overlapping and intersecting flows of ideas, knowledge, people, money, goods, and services link not only major cities and city regions, but an increasing number of diverse places and ecologies into expanding global networks of exchange. These networks of economic, social, political, and cultural organization pivot around global cities, creating a new geography of connectivity, new rules as the emerging geography of connectivity in an age of globalization.
Cities around the globe, modernization, industries representing financial, social, and political people. To be considered a global city, an urban center must demonstrate significant global need and serve as a hub within the global economic framework. The term global city has its roots in research on cities in the 1980s, which analyzed characteristics of the world's most significant urban areas. As globalization continues, urban areas are becoming key sources of production, finance, and media communications are becoming popular destinations for local politics. The rise of global cities is linked to the expansion of transnational corporations and global production trends and the decline of large-scale manufacturing. These cities become crucial role in coordination posts for TNCs in the globalizing world economy, and they also play a role in the globalization of state foundations, where products or services are developed and produced for global consumption while catering to local market needs.
Yes, Ellen, global cities are politically locked in, with national capitals having an advantage. They are centers of networks driven by global visionaries and value high quality of life. They are open to national policies that limit immigration, trade, and digital communication. Global cities are centers of innovation with well-developed infrastructure and a large population. They have active influence in international events and world affairs, with New York City being home to the United Nations headquarters complex. They have advanced transportation systems, attract the best and brightest from around the world, thrive on great universities, have large foreign-born populations, and are global tastemakers and cultural capitals. They are also destinations with tourists sharing their experience to attract more visitors. Innovation Cities TM Index 2019 listed top 10 world's largest global cities, namely New York, Paris, Tokyo, London, Los Angeles, Singapore, Chicago, Boston, San Francisco, and Toronto, while as indicated by the A.T. Kearney's Global Cities Index 2017, New York outmaneuvered London as the world's best performing city, while the last positioned second. Paris, Tokyo, and Hong Kong took after individually. The city of San Francisco topped the Global Cities Outlook Index ahead of New York, Paris, London, and Boston separately. New York was positioned the best city for business exercises and human capital. Paris beat the best urban areas for data trade, while London was appraised the best city for a social affair. Washington, D.C. is the best city for political commitment. Hong Kong gloats of being worldwide pioneer in airship cargo, where Brussels brags of being the best place to set up an international safe haven. The centralization of mass production in urban areas and the globalization of economies are related to the rise in global cities. Due to these two factors, networks of activities that seek to fulfill the service and financial requirements of multinationals have emerged. The cities grow to become global while others suffer the industrialization or stagnation of their economies. Amel Ramiro reporting. Charles?
Yes, Amel, that's right. However, despite global cities' significant roles in the global economy, global cities has also been known for doing threats to state-centric perspectives. These cities have been accused of focusing their reach to other global cities and neglecting cities within the national outreach. Aside from that, the biggest challenges faced by global cities is inequality. While these cities offer many opportunities for global economy and social advancement, they also tend to have high levels of income inequality and poverty. But global cities also encounters and experiences challenges themselves, such as a lack of an integrated planning framework in many urban areas taken into account, and the interpermeability of cities, a multiplicity of local bodies obstructing efficient planning and land use, rigid master plans, and restrictive zoning regulations that limit the land available for building, which constrict the city's opportunity to grow in accordance with changing needs, increasing vulnerability to climate change and disasters, and infrastructure deficit increasing prosperity amidst poverty, inequality, intercity strife or political conflicts, displacement, migration, and need for social connect. Global cities continues to play an important role in shaping the world economy and society. By addressing their challenges and promoting sustainable development, global cities can continue to lead the way towards more prosperous and equitable future. This has been Robijoy Eliano Pop reporting. Back to you, Evan.
Thank you for the comprehensive report, Arnel and Charles. Truly, cities are the agents of globalization, wherein they are interconnected with each other, growing faster and faster. Nowadays, urban life has become a superior form of human life throughout the world. According to Blight in 2001, it is in cities that global operations are centralized and where we can see most clearly the phenomena associated with their activities, whether it be changes in the structure of employment, the formation of powerful partnerships, the development of monumental real estate, and the emergence of new forms of local governments, the effects of organized crime, the expansion of corruption, the fragmentation of informal networks, and the spatial isolation and social exclusion of certain population groups. And it is the characteristics of cities and their surrounding regions in turn help shape globalization. For example, by providing a suitable labor force, making available the required physical technological infrastructure, creating a stable and accommodating regulatory environment, offering the bundle of necessary support services, contributing financial incentives, possessing the institutional capacity without globalization cannot occur. Thus, cities mediate the reciprocal relationships between economic globalization on the one hand and human development on the other. They form an important link in processes of globalization and their implications for human development. And that's it for the Global City. We'll be back after a short break.
Welcome back to the Global News. Moving on to the global demography. This is primarily focused on the scientific study of human populations with respect to their size, their structure, and their development. Accordingly, it studies the size, territorial distribution, and composition of population, changes therein, its components of such changes, which may be identified as mortality, territorial movement, and social mobility. We have Joey Perico and Clara Obrao for further details.
Yes, Nicole, we are here at Patagonia de Oro City to interview individuals about their experience with overpopulations. Hi!
Hi.
What's your name and age?
I am Kimberly Ann Maninos. I am 19 years of age.
How are you affected by our country's overpopulation scandal?
To answer that question, I have to think it first. Basically, the overpopulation has several ways that affects our day-to-day life, such as scarcity of resources and water, especially district water here in CDO. Much worse on electricity as well. Like the past few weeks, we have experienced consecutive blackouts because I'm currently residing in the city of Cagayan de Oro. We all have experienced the past worst week. Almost 1 week, no source of water. Yes, shortage. Also, we have experienced severe traffic here in our city. If we are going to reflect before when we commute from downtown to uptown, it usually only just takes more or less 30 minutes. Of course, they worsen our environment in so many ways, such as distraction. It creates pollution and increased carbon emission. Diba? Can we all agree na sobrang nakaayo kainit karon sa Cagayan de Oro?
Thank you for that wonderful insights about your experience. Truly, overpopulation has various effects on the lives of people. And to better understand this phenomenon, we have the demographic transition theory. The demographic transition is used to describe and explain the movement of birth rates, death rates, and population growth. This theory suggests that every country passes through different stages of population growth. In the first stage, the birth rate and the death rate are high and the growth rate of population is low. In the second stage, the birth rate remains stable but the death rate falls rapidly. As a result, the growth rate of population increases very swiftly. In the last stage, the birth rate starts falling and tends to equal the death rate. The growth rate of population is very low.
Hey, this is Jacob Clifford. In this video, I'm going to connect economic development to something called the demographic transition model. It's going to show 3 different things that change over time: the birth rate, the death rate, and the total population. To give it some historical context, I'm going to focus on the US and Western Europe. But remember, every country goes through this process, although some might not fit the mold and some transition quicker than others. Okay, here we go. For thousands of years, the world looked like this. There were high birth rates with families having many children, but high death rates with many of those children never reaching adulthood. Life expectancy and living standards were low, and there were no hospitals or medicine, and life was just basically hunger, disease, war, and death. A lot of death. And there really wasn't an economy because most of it was subsistence farming where people were growing food for themselves, not to sell. And the result was that global human population stayed relatively low for thousands of years. This is stage 1 of the DMT, and it's the life of the vast majority of the people who've ever existed. Oh, that's depressing. But over time, people started to grow more food, and that was not just for themselves, it was for other people to sell it, and that created agricultural-based economies. And more food means less famine and higher living standards, so the death rate started to decrease. And at this point, during stage 2, came the Industrial Revolution. Technological advancements like the widespread use of the steam engine changed what would be produced and how it would be produced. It's also when Adam Smith, the founder of modern economics, wrote about how markets and economies work, and when Thomas Malthus wrote that we're all going to die of starvation.
I am inevitable.
Malthus noticed that our ability to produce food grew at a linear rate, but population grew exponentially. And his logical conclusion was that eventually we're going to run out of food and people are going to starve. And the DMT shows that he was right. Kind of. Population here in stage 2 is increasing at an increasing rate, but industrialization brought new technologies and more productivity that led to more food production. And industrialization led to better healthcare, education, and sanitation, which decreased the death rate. But notice that the birth rate didn't really start to fall because a lot of families felt an economic need to have more kids to farm the land, and they didn't realize that a lot of their children are actually going to reach adulthood. In other words, they didn't know that the death rate was falling, so they continue to have a lot of kids. And as economies industrialize, people move from rural to urban areas, from farms to factories. This means that a lot of families didn't have either the room or the necessity for a lot of kids, and so the birth rate started to fall. This is stage 3, when the population is increasing, but at a decreasing rate because the fertility rate has fallen and people are having less kids. And advancements in production and trade led to higher living standards and a decrease in extreme poverty. This is the world of industrialized countries. Now here in stage 4, we have post-industrial economies where the focus isn't on manufacturing, it's on service industries like finance, insurance, and healthcare. Birth rates and death rates are low, so there's zero population growth, and life expectancy, gender equality, and living standards are the highest they've ever been in the history of the world. Whoa. Now, up to this point, I've been talking about Western industrialized countries, but this process is happening all over the world. Every country is at a different stage of development. You can see that in their demographics. Right now, there's really no countries that are in stage 1, but there are some countries that are in stage 2. These countries have underdeveloped economies, so they have high birth rates and high death rates, and population growth that's exponential. These are countries like Angola, the Sudan, and Guatemala. And other countries like India and Mexico are already at stage 3, where people have already moved into factories, and they have falling birth rates, and they have higher standards of living. And countries like China and Canada and the United States are at stage 4 with very little population growth. And there's also a theoretical stage 5 with countries like Germany and Japan where the population is actually falling. Okay, so who cares? You do, because it's important to understand economic development so you don't have preconceived ideas about the world. Thanks for watching. Until next time.
In the 18th and 19th centuries, some philosophers believed firmly that human society would continue to improve until toward a utopian ideal. Malthus countered this belief, arguing that the segments of the general population have invariably been poor and miserable, effectively slowing population growth. Based on his observation of condition in England in the early 80s, Malthus argued that the development of farmland was insufficient to feed the increasing population. More specifically, he stated that the human population increases geometrically while food production increases arithmetically. As a result, he proposed that through preventative checks and positive checks, the population would be in control to balance the food supply with the population level. Positive checks or natural checks. Nature has its own way of keeping a check on increasing population. It brings the population level to the level of the available food supply. The positive checks include the famines, earthquakes, floods, epidemics, wars, and etc. Nature plays up when the population growth goes out of hand. Preventive checks. Preventive measures such as late marriage, self-control, and simple living help to balance the population growth and food supply. These measures not only check the population growth, but can also prevent the catastrophic effects of the positive checks.
Thank you for that insightful report, Joey and Quinn. In the past 50 years, the world accelerated its transition out of long-term demographic stability. As infant and child mortality rates fell, populations began to soar. In most countries, this growth led to falling fertility rates. Although fertility has fallen, the population continues to increase because of population momentum. It will eventually level off. In the meantime, the demographic change has created a bulge generation, which today appears in many countries as a large working-age population. This cohort will eventually become a large elderly population in both developed and developing countries. Don't change your channel. We'll be right back with another leading news after this short infomercial.
MJ anak, ano, kumusta ka na? Yung pag-aaral mo, matataas pa rin ba yung mga grades mo?
Meron akong pangarap na pag sa pamilya ko. Bali po kasi yung chances po kasi dito, hindi naman po ako ma-promote for regularity.
Excited po siyang umalis po tapos sobrang saya niya po. Sana maging masaya po yung mama ko na magkatrabaho na to.
Very sad because I cannot see my mother every day. Sometimes I feel that she doesn't love me, but she said that she loved me.
Masaya po ako pag nandito po siya sa Pilipinas. Yung pagpasok niya po sa airport, lumuha po yung mata ko tapos nalungkot po ako.
Love you.
And we're back on the global news. Moving on to the last news report. Migration, especially of humans, is the movement by individuals from one place then on to the next because of specific components and expectations to settling permanently or temporarily in a vicinity. It is often over long distances from one country to another, whereas the situation in which people to go live in foreign countries, especially to, is global migration. The current global estimate is that there were around 281 million migrants in the world in 2020, which equates to 3.6% of global population. Overall, the estimated number of international migrants has increased over the past 5 decades. The total estimated 281 million people living in a country other than their countries of birth in 2020 was 128 million more than in 1990 and over 3 times the estimated number of 1970. For an in-depth report, we have Jana Paravino and Rovi Omco. Jan? Ro?
Yes, Nicole. Good day, Globe. I am here today in Bulwa, Cagayan de Oro City to interview an OFW in vacation.
Okay. Honestly, I never dreamed to be an OFW. But when I was working in Makati, especially in Asia Pacific College, that time, my eldest son is already going to, he's already about 4 years old, 5 years old at the time. So he's about to enroll in grade 1, elementary. Then during that time, I was thinking about his life, especially in his education. So I was asking myself, how do I send him to school, especially in high school or college? especially in Manila, very expensive place. And here in Philippines, especially, how can I send him into school in my situation?
For your experience, what is the benefits of working abroad?
Speaking of benefits, it's very big difference. You know, salary. Because working here in Philippines, same skills or same trade, maybe I can say times 5, times 6 of the salary. And there are special trainings.
So for the question number 3, what are the challenges of working as an OFW and how do you deal or cope up with these challenges?
Challenges, as far as myself is concerned, to me, the only one or number one challenges for an OFW is homesickness. That is the number one, I think. Frequent communication with the family.
If you were given the choice or the chance to work in the Philippines or abroad, which would you choose and why?
You know, honestly, it's better to work here in our own country because you are free. You are free to do anything what you want. No one can say or can tell to you that, hey, don't do that, don't do this. No, because you are at your own country, or your own land. The difference only working here is, you know, the salary, because that's the number one why some people or our fellow men, countrymen working abroad, because of the money, the salary. Salary is not enough for everybody, especially for those who are already married or father or mother, something like that. And yeah.
And then for the last one, can you give some pieces of advice to those who want to become a
to those who are planning to become an OFW someday, to be prepared to yourself, because working abroad is not that easy as what you think. You have to be prepared by yourself, how 100% you are sure to go away from your family, especially your parents if you are still single, to your kids, to your wife, to your husband if you are already married. And other thing, one thing is your documents. Be prepared for all your documents, because working abroad is not that, it's like magic. You can easily go, no? Documents, and to me, my advice is education. Nowadays, working abroad is not that easy to apply.
Globalization has increased the interconnectedness of nation states, speeding up the flow of goods, services, ideas, and people across national boundaries. There was international migration long before the era of globalization, but the speed, the scope, the complexity, and the volume of world migration in today's time is extensive and beyond. Filipino workers, both women and men, including Mr. Ronaldo Cabral, leave the country in order to earn a sustainable income, a condition that is difficult and inadequate in their home country. Today, we will get to know the concepts of migration, the selection process, factors affecting global migration, and why do people migrate.
There are a lot of words to refer to people who move from one place to another. Some are used in overlapping ways, but there are key differences between many of them, including whether the person is coming or going and for what reasons. Migration is the movement of people from one place to another. When we say movement, it pertains to the change of residence while retaining same jobs, social relationship, and community ties. There are many types of migration, including internal migration and external migration. Internal migration means that people are moving within the same country or territory. External migration refers to the processes of immigration and immigration, which means that people are leaving one region of the world to move to another. Essentially, migration is the wide-scale relocation of people. An immigrant is a person who has immigrated, moved to another country, usually for permanent residence. Note the past tense in the definition. A person is not considered an immigrant until they have settled in the new place. An immigrant, on the other hand, is someone who leaves a country or region. A person is considered an immigrant as soon as they leave within the intention to live permanently and not just to travel, for example. The difference is that immigration is leaving and immigration is coming. An immigrant is someone who moves away, while an immigrant is someone who moves in. Residential mobility refers to the process of individuals or household changing their place of residence. It can involve moving from one neighborhood to another within the same city or town, relocating to different city or region, or even migrating to a new country. Residential mobility can be influenced by various factors such as job opportunities, economic conditions, housing affordability, family reasons, lifestyle preferences, and educational opportunities, among others. Migration streams represent the organized pattern of human movement from one location to another, encompassing both internal and international migration. These streams are shaped by a multitude of factors, including economic opportunities, political conditions, social networks, and environmental circumstances. Within countries, migration streams often flow from rural to urban areas in pursuit of better prospects, while internationally, they typically follow established routes from regions of lower economic opportunity to those with greater prosperity. Migration by stage delineates the journey of migrants into distinct phases: departure, transit, and settlement. Departure involves the decision to leave, often driven by economic, political, or personal factors, and entails logistical and emotional challenges. Transit comprises the physical movement from origin to destination, marked by border crossings, diverse modes of transportation, and exposure to risks such as exploitation and legal hurdles. Settlement denotes the establishment in a new environment, encompassing the search for housing, employment, and adaptation to cultural norms while encountering barriers like language differences and social integration. These stages underscore the complexity and diverse experiences within migration, the needs and challenges encountered by migrants at each phase of their journey. The term migration interval refers to the temporal duration over which migration takes place, encompassing the period during which entities, organisms, or people relocate from one location, system, or habitat to another. The migration interval encapsulates the time span within which migration processes unfold across different contexts. Gross migration refers to the total number of movements of individuals or households into or out of a specific area over a given period of time, typically measured without accounting for the net change in population. It includes both in-migration, people moving into the area, and out-migration, people moving out of the area. Gross migration provides valuable insights into population dynamics, migration patterns, and demographic changes within a region. Stream movement in migration refers to the pattern of movement followed by groups of migrating individuals, similar to the flow of water in a stream. In migration studies, it often describes the direction, volume, and timing of people moving from one place to another, whether within a country or across international borders. Forced migration refers to the movement of individuals or groups who are compelled to leave their homes or communities due to circumstances beyond their control, such as conflict, persecution, violence, natural disaster, or human rights violations. Unlike voluntary migration, which involves a personal choice to relocate, forced migration involves coercion or necessity. People who experience forced migration are often referred to as refugees, asylum seekers, internally displaced persons, or stateless persons, depending on their legal status and circumstances. The migration selection process refers to the factors and criteria that influence individuals or groups when deciding to migrate from one place to another. First, rural to urban migration, also known as rural-urban migration, refers to the movement of people from rural areas such as villages and countryside to urban areas including towns and cities. This migration pattern is driven by various factors including economic opportunities, better access to education and healthcare, improved infrastructure, and the allure of urban lifestyle. rural to urban, migration is a significant component of global urbanization, contributing to the growth and expansion of cities and towns while impacting rural communities by reducing their population and potentially affecting agricultural productivity. Selectivity in age and sex refers to the tendency for certain demographic groups, such as specific age ranges or genders, to migrate at different rates or exhibit distinct migration patterns compared to others. This phenomenon is commonly observed in migration studies and population analysis. Age selectivity in migration may involve younger individuals being most likely to move for educational or employment opportunities, while older individuals may migrate for retirement or family-related reasons. The migration selection process within kinship and ethnicity involves consideration of family ties, social networks, cultural identity, and historical relationships. Why do people migrate? We have been doing it for thousands of years, so long that we are not entirely sure how humans got to all corners of the planet, as the earliest migrations took place long before humans recorded history. Let's take a look at the causes of migration, including the environmental, political, social, and economic factors that might encourage someone to move. Economic migration is the movement of people from one country to another to benefit from greater economic opportunities in the receiving country. It is often assumed that such migration is primarily from less economically developed countries in the global south to the more economically developed countries in the global north, also known as the West. For example, from Philippines to the USA, from North Africa to Europe, and from former colonies to the country that was the imperial power. However, there is also economic migration between countries in the global south, particularly neighboring countries, as well as within the global north, for example, from countries in South Asia to Middle East, from Philippines to Thailand, and from UK to Spain. Environmental migration refers to the movement of people from their homes due to environmental factors such as natural disasters, climate change, and environmental degradation. This type of migration can be temporary or permanent and can occur both internally within the country or across international borders. It presents significant challenges for both the migrants and the communities they moved into, as well as broader implications for global migration patterns and policies. Political migration refers to the movement of people from one place to another due to political reasons. This could include fleeing persecution, seeking asylum, or simply relocating to a place that aligns better with one's political beliefs or values. Political migration can be motivated by a variety of factors, including oppressive regimes, civil unrest, or seeking better political opportunities elsewhere. Social causes can be easily mixed with political causes, and they often share many similarities, but social causes have to do more with the culture of people rather than the government. However, the government can often be a reflection of the culture and people of a place. Social factors may include discrimination or oppression, especially when political protection is legally guaranteed but not practiced socially or culturally. For example, if someone is experiencing religious oppression, they may choose to move to a place where their religion is more frequently practiced or accepted. Social causes can be also more interpersonal, such as suffering threats or abuse from someone or moving to an area where one has more family ties. We live in an era of unprecedented human mobility. Migration is growing at a higher pace than population growth rate. In a world population of 7.4 billion, more than 250 million are international migrants, and an estimated of 750 million are internal migrants.
Globalization is truly through greater mobility, played a big part in the exodus of overseas Filipino workers and brought changes in the dynamic of global migration. This has been Jonathan Regino reporting. Moving to you, Rovi.
Thank you, Jenna. Since the earliest times, humanity has been on the move. Some people move in search of work or economic opportunity, to join family, or to study. Others move to escape conflict, persecution, or large-scale human rights violations. Still, Others move in response to the adverse effects of climate change, natural disasters, or other environmental factors. Today, more people than ever live in a country other than the one in which they were born. According to the Population Division of the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, as of 1st July 2020, the global number of international migrants was estimated to be 281 million. International migrants comprise some 3.5% of the global population, compared to 2.8% in 2000 and 2.3% in 1960. While most people migrate out of choice, others migrate out of necessity. Push and pull factors of migration. Push factors are the negative reasons why people leave from an area of origin, while pull factors are the positive reasons why people go to a desired destination of choice. The table below shows the examples of push and pull factors. Overseas Filipino workers, or OFW, is a term often used to refer to Filipino migrant workers, people with Filipino citizenship who reside in another country for a limited period of employment. Table 5 shows the number of overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs, who worked abroad at any time during the period April to September 2018. It was estimated at 2.3 million overseas contract workers, or OCWs, with existing work contract comprised 96.2% of the total OFWs during the same period. The remaining 3.8% worked overseas without contract. There were more females than males among the OFWs, with the female OFWs comprising 55.5% of the total OFWs. Female OFWs were generally younger age than male OFWs, with about half, or 47.5% of the female OFWs belonging to the made-up 38.9 group 25 to 34 years. In comparison, male OFWs aged 45 years and wider accounted for 21.2% of all male made-up 14.5% OFWs, while their female counterparts in this age group made up 14.5%. Table 6 illustrates OFWs among occupation groups. Elementary occupations, 37.1%, was the largest group of OFWs. Other large occupation groups were the service and sales workers, 18.8%, and plant and machine operators and assemblers, 13.8%. More than half of the female OFWs were in elementary occupations, 58.7%. Among the male OFWs, the large groups were plant and machine operators and assemblers workers, 27.8%. Table 7 reflects the OFWs by region of origin and place of work abroad. Calabar Zone reported the biggest share of OFWs with 17.9%, followed by Central Luzon with 14.3%, and the National Capital Region and Ilocos Region, each with 9.7% share. 50% of the total OFWs came from these four regions. 1 out of 4, or 24.3%, OFWs worked in Saudi Arabia, which remained to be the top destination of OFWs in April to September 2018. OFWs who worked in United Arab Emirates comprised 15.7%, Hong Kong 6.3%, Kuwait 5.7%, Taiwan 5.5%, and Qatar 5.2% were the other popular destinations of OFWs. The increasing number of OFWs has become overwhelming despite uncertain circumstances and risk, which poses some consequences to the country. What do you think are the effects of brain drain phenomenon? How is the country dealing with it? Indeed, OFWs are the country's modern-day heroes because they not only boost the Philippines economy through remittances, but are the figures of resilience. OFWs endure homesickness, personal sacrifices, and horrible working conditions in order to support their families back home. This has been Rovi Joy Eliana Apo. Back to you, Nicole and Emma.
Thank you for that, Jana and Rovi. Indeed, globalization will make a wonderful impact, not just for our country, but to the rest of the connected nations that we are interconnected with. And for us to be able to really know, to be well informed about globalization, we can research about it and at the same time learn further about it because it is easily accessible online.
That is right, partner. And for the recap of today's news, attributes of a global city and how it serves as engines of globalization.
Theory of demographic transition and how it affects global population.
Factors underlying the global movement of people and the experiences of overseas Filipino workers.
This has been Emma Namar.
And this has been Nicole Antanes.
And this has been the Global News.
Your comprehensive source of news around the globe.
See you next time. Atlanta.